morning, everyone. My name is Allison DeGuide, and I'm with the Illinois Restaurant Association. I'd like to thank you for joining today's webinar, 5 Ways to Boost Restaurant Profitability. Today's webinar is being broadcast in English, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese. To listen in Spanish or Chinese, please use the interpretation button on your toolbar. This webinar is being presented by the Illinois Restaurant Association in partnership with the Cook County Small Business Source. Established to ensure businesses emerge from COVID-19 intact and positioned for growth, the Small Business Source connects small business owners with expert guidance and support. Services include no-cost business advising, resources, and events that connect small business owners with a community of advisors. For one-on-one business advising, sign up at cookcountysmallbiz.org. It's free and easy to sign up. Also, before we begin, I'd like everyone attending to know that the Illinois Restaurant Association remains a resource to you. We send regular email updates with what you need to know, and you can sign up for those on our website. For today's webinar, you can use the Q&A button to post your questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll do a Q&A session at the end. At this time, I'd like to introduce our panelists, Tony Roy, Chief Operating Officer and co-founder at Pop Menu. Tony, please take it away.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate, and that's quite the glamour photo there. But I'm excited to spend some time with you guys today. I know you're busy, a lot going on today, so appreciate you taking time. This is not a Pop Menu sales pitch. My goal here is to help you understand, what are some things that successful restaurants around the country are doing in their business to make their lives easier, to meet the demands of consumers, and navigate the never-ending challenges you face, whether it's labor, whether it's inflation, whether it's all this crazy tech stuff that you didn't get into the restaurant business to do. My goal is to help you simplify some of this, make some recommendations. I'll show you some examples of how our tool does certain things, but obviously there are other options out there that you can explore. So if nothing else, I should give you some great information to go out and ask better questions and hopefully understand some things just a little bit easier. I'm going to take the screen real quick and let's see there. There we go. You guys can see that okay?
I think, at least on my end, I'm not seeing anything yet. There we go.
Okay. All right, you guys good? Okay, cool. I'm not a big PowerPoint fan, but I think to make sure we stay somewhat on track, my marketing team made me do this, so I apologize in advance. But so all that I'd said before, as she mentioned, I'm one of the founders and COO here at Pop Menu. If you're not familiar with us, we work with over 12,000 restaurants around the country. We work with mom and pop, taco trucks, QSRs, full service restaurants, large multi-unit groups, anything, it runs the gamut. I think all the challenges are relatively simple or similar in the sense that most restaurants are, in our opinion, overpaying to use a series of different tools and/or contractors that don't always talk to each other, oftentimes are often very manual in how you need to use the tools, and you don't necessarily get economies of scale with those investments. I also think there are a couple of core things that every restaurant should be focused on first, such as how is your menu displayed to the market? That's a great way to pick up a lot of valuable insights to influence the purchase pattern of guests and to learn who your guests are, what their interests are, and why they chose you. Gaining all that information, optimizing for Google, those two things alone put most restaurants above 90% of the competition. So today I'm going to talk about 5 ways that you can boost profitability and do it virtually right away, which is a good thing. So we did a survey. We surveyed over 1,000 restaurant owners and operators, and we pulled some data also from NRA. So restaurant sales this year will top over $1 trillion, but still only just over a quarter of operators expect to be more profitable than last year. There's a gap there, right? There's a gap there. And that's probably because restaurants there's so much consumer demand. There's a lot of people fighting for the attention of those consumers. How can you differentiate? If you're a 1 or 2 location operator, how do you differentiate? How do you compete in getting your brand out there with somebody who's got 12 locations and a large marketing team? Great technology and things like AI are allowing everyone to level the playing field. If you're a small operator, I'm going to show you that by leveraging smart technology, you'll be able to get your name out there faster, less expensive, and less time that you have to invest. That sounds pretty good on the surface. If you're a larger operator dealing with multiple locations, multiple concepts, I'm going to show you how leveraging smart technology allows you to produce significantly more content consistently across all concepts without having to hire a huge team or invest thousands and thousands of dollars. We're going to cover a couple of hot trends influencing restaurants this year, some simple things every restaurant can do, not just to grow your revenue, but to grow profits, right? Anyone can help you get a few more customers, but how do you influence that purchase pattern? How do you highlight your high profit items, your signature dishes? How do you get consumers to come back? How do you learn about them so I can turn Allison in from just an everyday customer to somebody that also does catering with me? I'll show you some examples of how you can do that, whether it's with a tool like Pop Menu or another tool that you might be using today. And then lastly, we'll cover some real world examples of how restaurants are leveraging AI and automation. Obviously, that's important. I was talking with the team earlier. I do think that if you're new or you're not clear what AI is, you're hearing a lot about it. It's a hot topic today. I think most people don't fully understand it. I think there's going to be some good examples out there in the market, and there's definitely already some bad examples that are not going to help restaurants the way that they think. I'm going to show you things you should look for in leveraging AI, because I do believe that over time, you can't afford to be the only restaurant that's not leveraging it to some degree, because it makes your team just that much more efficient. It helps alleviate some of the labor challenges you're likely dealing with today. And ultimately, it's going to be a great way to stay consistently in front of consumers and bring guests in. So let's jump right into it. As I mentioned, we did a survey at the end of last year. There is definitely still strong consumer demand. There's no doubt about that. Over 3/4 of consumers are dining out at least once a week. And you can see here that 1 in 4 consumers, they actually still spend more money on restaurants than they do with ride sharing services, streaming, travel, sports events, you name it. The real question here is, how do we make sure that you're one of the restaurants that they choose, whether that's dining with you, whether that's ordering pickup, or whether that's catering from you or attending an event? I'm going to show you that by the one important thing is making sure that your brand is out there consistently in a variety of mediums. Not only can you be consistent, but if you can learn more about and really have focused communications with individuals, that drastically improves your response rate and ultimately drives people to your business more consistently. So getting back to the basics, here are 5 key things through our survey that restaurant leaders are thinking about or focused on and realizing they need to change. The first thing I always recommend to somebody, whether you're using Pop Menu or not, one basic way to drive more transactions is incorporating quality content. Photos of dishes, cocktails, events. Having that imagery on your site is incredibly valuable. 64% of restaurateurs are planning to do just that, incorporate more of that visual content. I'm going to show you an example of some of our customers on our platform, what we see. And again, it's a large data set, over 12,000 restaurants. When somebody has a visual attached to a dish item on their menu and or features the item, it has a 303% greater engagement rate. People interacting with it, sharing it, telling you they love it or want to try it, ordering the item. It has a 202% greater order rate on the ones we can track, and that's just online ordering. What that tells us is that visual content is a great way to influence the purchase pattern. So if you have high profit items or signature dishes that you know pull people in, investing in content, at least for those items at minimum, will make a big difference for your business. I'm going to show you a few examples in a minute. Over half restaurant operators ensure consistent outreach to guests is something they're trying to figure out. It's very difficult. If you're a 1 location operator, a 5 location, or 20 location operator, consistency of marketing is critical. There is a direct correlation between marketing activity and getting people to your restaurant. I always say that at Pop Menu, we have 3 primary responsibilities, and I would tell you that anybody that you're partnering with today really has these same responsibilities. Our first responsibility is to drive as many people to your business as possible, and starting with free channels. If you maximize free channels, for example, organic traffic from Google being one of those, consumers being able to share things directly from your site, directly from your menu is another example. You always maximize free channels first. The second thing is, once they get there, how do you give the user or the guest a unique experience? By incorporating visual content, allowing them to interact with you. That will improve your your conversion rate of somebody visiting the site and then opting to order from you or come see you on-prem. The third thing will be, how do you learn more about folks? How do you capture that guest data, excuse me, so that your marketing efforts are much more focused to the individual user, which ultimately means you have a much better conversion rate. Because the third responsibility for any great partner should be, how do I take Allison and bring her back 10 times a year instead of 4? If you do the first 3 things already, you have a great chance of succeeding. Nearly half of folks ensure that their website is optimized for Google. Everybody wants Facebook and Instagram, and that's a valuable part of a well-rounded strategy. I would argue all day long that the one thing you really want to focus on outside the menu being first is secondly, making sure that you're optimized for Google. It's the largest traffic engine in the world. It is the #1 place people search for restaurants. So make sure that you're optimized for that. Over 40% also come to us and say, hey, we love the delivery. It's a great way to attract customers, but man, the fees can be really high. How do I wean myself off of that and convert Kathy from a third-party guest into a first-party customer who orders directly from me, where the margins are better for my business? I'm going to show you a few examples of how you can do that. So these are 5 things that I think most successful restaurants are trying to figure out or improve upon. And so these are things you can be doing today. Now, the first one here, make your restaurant easy to find online. Now, this is an example of one of our customers. They're based out of Chicago, called Hampton Social. One thing you want to do is optimize for Google. One way you can do that is if you're investing in a digital presence, a website that is interactive and is structured so that Google can index that. Some basic things: make sure your sites are mobile optimized. That's where majority of your traffic is. If your sites don't function properly on mobile, Google will ding you, and it just means you get less free traffic. One thing we do at Pop Menu that's unique is we'll actually, by making the menu interactive, what you're seeing here today, is we're actually indexing each one of these items individually. Essentially what we do is we create a separate web page for every single dish, every cocktail, every event. That's just one way of making sure Google has more information they can pull and index from your business. So optimizing your site for mobile, making sure it's secure, and then having an interactive menu are 3 great ways for you to optimize free traffic from Google. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that, as well as some dish passionate stacks. Again, there are other providers or agencies that might be building your sites today. I would ask them how they're optimizing for Google. How are they maximizing free traffic channels? That's a great question to ask any provider. If you're using a PDF today, that is bad. Google doesn't index that properly, and that just means you're missing out on a lot of free traffic. So even moving away from your PDF to a static menu is better. And moving from a static menu to something that's more dynamic is obviously sort of the holy grail there. So those are some basic adjustments you can make. Move away from the PDF, move to at least a static menu, if not dynamic, incorporate some visuals, and already you're ahead of 95% of the game. You're seeing an example of a dynamic menu where somebody can drill down into an item. They can read reviews. They can tell you they love or want to try the item. They can purchase the item. They can share it. All these things are beneficial because you're the one collecting all the valuable insights. Okay, awesome. Let's get to the next slide. And I'm going to bounce here in a second. I'm going to show you a live example. I pulled this one up because it's a good customer. Started out, I believe they had 5 or 6 locations when we started with them. I think they now have 12 or 14, and they're based there in Chicago. So you can see here the amount of web traffic they're getting, how many reviews they're receiving, dish likes they're receiving. This is just in a couple of months. And so you can see why were they able to accelerate these things more so than anyone else? And to give you some perspective, when we look back at the data, and I'm going to show you a live example here, but this restaurant, Hampton Social, saw a 63% increase in visitors within the first 3 months of implementing their interactive menu. That's huge. That's huge. Think about even a 10% increase to your restaurant. If you're a single location restaurant in Peoria or in downtown Chicago, River North, you imagine conservatively you're probably getting at least 5,000 visitors a month to your restaurant, probably way, way more than that. A 10% increase is 500 additional visitors. A 20% increase is an extra 1,000 people getting to your business for free. You have to like that opportunity. Let me get out of here. I almost have hives from being in that. And I'm going to show you the live version of Hampton Social. Um, what I always tell people is websites are better than not having any website. And certainly a pretty website is better than a not pretty website. But remember that websites are really just a souped up business card to a degree. There's a difference between a website and a platform. A platform is something that will combine many different things into one spot. A platform is something that consumers can interact with versus a static business card. This is Hampton Social. Now, this is one of our customers, but again, you can look for these things anywhere across the internet or other providers. One thing that we realized at Pop Menu was the menu is where everybody goes. If I haven't been to your restaurant, if I've never ordered from you, or I haven't been there in a long time, then when I get to the site, what am I doing? I'm going to the menu page. The menu is by far the primary decision point for every guest, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what kind of cuisine category. Okay. You can see that here, we know the menu is so powerful that at Pop Menu, we essentially design these world-class websites for free. Because in our opinion, this is the page you should be focused on, is the menu experience. Now, the best way I think to look at this, let's go to the dinner page, excuse me, is to look at your site, look at your menu, and then look at a version like this. And then you can go look at it on mobile device. So if you're on your laptop and you want to see, you just right click and hit inspect. And ask yourself, do I think this has a greater opportunity to capture guest attention or my static text? It's pretty simple, right? It seems obvious. I know my wife is not going anywhere without seeing a photo. And now I've come to be addicted to that as well. But think about visuals. Not only does it look appealing, but it also has purpose. If I am a restaurant and let's say my Brussels sprouts have a high profit margin, how do I draw more attention to that so I'm not just reliant on my 19-year-old server who's been with us for 6 weeks to when Kathy sits down to educate her and guide her through that process? That's a lot to ask of anybody, and you're incredibly busy. This becomes an avenue for you to do that, to influence the purchase pattern before the person hits the order button or before they even arrive on premise. So when I refer to a dynamic menu, this is what I refer to in this example, and I'll bounce out here so you can see it in view. You see that you want to stay things in your domain. That's good for free traffic. The visual content, like we talked about, the 5 things that are on top of mind for successful operators, incorporating that visual content goes a long, long way. Making it dynamic, make sure that people can stay on your site longer. They don't need to go to a third party like Yelp or look at other restaurants before making their decision. I can see here that I have 123 people that love, like, or want to try the item. I can now read and write reviews that are specific to what I care about. I can share this to my friends. And I send that to 6 people. It's free advertising. And McKenna says, wow, that looks great. I want to try it. And now because we made this interactive, not only we put our best foot forward, not only we differentiated and captured the consumer's interest in a way that's very unique, not only we've given everything they want to make a decision so they don't have to leave our site to go look at somewhere else, but now we've also started to allow them to interact with us. So now we learn about them. We've also said, hey, raise your hand and follow our restaurant, join our community, and you can get special treatment. You can get special rewards and other things. So now from a static menu, it's not just the appearance, but this is when we refer to a platform, is the platform is giving consumers so much more, and it's giving you so much more. Everybody wins in that scenario. And you'll see here that if you're trying to drive more reservations or orders, you want to make that path really simple for guests. You want to optimize its exposure. So no matter who in the party is looking at what particular item, we want to make sure that that's really prevalent, easy to capture. So these are all some basic things that will help you, excuse me, that will help you in your search. I also want to highlight one other thing here because we talked about optimizing for Google. You do not have to be technical to understand this, but I wanted to show you what I referred to earlier. You'll see here when I hover over the Parmesan truffle fries, which look tasty, in the bottom left-hand corner, you see a web address. And as I hover over those items, that web address changes. this is an example of how we at Pop Menu are doing it, where we're indexing every single item like it's its own web page. And what that means is not only are we collectively giving Google more information to pull, which ultimately is one of the main factors in ranking your restaurants at the top of searches or restaurants near me searches, right? That's a huge deal. But what that's doing is essentially driving more traffic. But also, not only can the restaurant say, hey, best brunch in River North, okay, great, Hampton Social comes out, but some people will run more specific searches. Hey, who's got the best octopus in Arlington? Who's got the best octopus in LaGrange? And so these individual dish items can now start to show up high on a search result. So I think that's really important to understand. And I'm going to show you another example here in a second when I go to the site. No matter what your business is, again, websites are great. They can really capture the attention. But remember that your traffic is going straight to the menu page. So this is the one thing that you want to really maximize, because this is where a vast majority of your traffic is online. Anybody that you're working with today, or anybody that's looking to work with you in terms of your digital footprint, I would always start by asking, what are they doing to maximize our menu experience for guests? Because that is by far the most critical thing to think about. Okay, I'm going to bounce back to my presentation. Again, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. We'll get to them at the end. If it's something we can do, you also have an opportunity, I think, to ask questions directly. Let's go back to my boring PowerPoint. All right, so this is an example. This is Steam Boys, which is a dumpling place. They have multiple locations in and around the Nashville area. You can see here, Steam Boys ranks #1 for local searches for individual items too. Best bow, you can see here, that's the example. So if people are looking for specific dishes or cuisine categories, individual items can come up along with helping the restaurant show up high in a search result. So also for best dumplings. So that's an example of what I was referring to in making your menu experience dynamic. So again, I'd always ask people for that. Now, what that also led, we showed you the dynamic version on Hampton Social. This is just another screen grab of that. Steam Boys captured contact information and understood consumer preferences for over 28,000 guests. This menu, now they would not have had that if the menu would have been static. So no matter how small you are, no matter how big you are, making the menu interactive is great for consumers. It's also incredibly valuable for you. Not doing so just makes everything about what you're doing harder. So I definitely invest in that experience. So awesome. I'm going to go to the next slide, and let's talk about how we can automate your outreach. One thing we learned when we started this business is we knew that the menu was important. We had drastically underestimated how busy you were and how fragmented the technology aspect of your business was. You're managing something for a website, you may have an email tool, social media tool, or contractor. Maybe you've got an online ordering partner, you've got a POS, you've got text messaging, you're not sure how to start that. It's a lot. By the way, you're handling guests coming in, you've got vendors coming in. It's a crazy business. I love it, but it's crazy. But what we realize is all that means you really don't have time. And the reality is, when you don't have time to do something that's so critical for your business, that means your margin for error is that much smaller. So we said, Hal, this is a great email tool, this is a great social tool, but we realized, like, if we didn't help you do that, if we didn't automate certain things, then some actions just didn't happen, and we knew those were valuable actions to happen for you. So incorporating automation into your business is a great way to ensure consistency of getting your brand out there, and also ensuring that you can produce more activity, more needed activity, while you're doing many other tasks that you're experiencing every single day. So this is an example of a pizza place. I believe it's 2 locations in the Bay Area. I'm going to show you an example in a minute, but with marketing tools, in our example, powered by Pop Menu, this 2-location pizza place, which is largely just pickup, earned over $1 million in commission-free online ordering revenue last year alone. Now, why is that? Well, obviously, it must be a good spot. I've eaten there. It is good. It's solid. But if you go back to mid to late 2022, This restaurant sent 65 emails to a specific guest over the course of, almost 2 years, or roughly 2 years. 54 of those emails were automatically generated by the system based on a very specific action that the consumer took. Okay, so what that means is the restaurant very likely would never have been able to produce 65 emails from scratch that were focused to this individual. It would have never happened. By incorporating automation into your business, you ensure that those valuable touch points are happening. Well, why does that matter? Well, because we stayed top of mind with this particular guest, in the course of 2 years, they had over 140 orders for over $8,000 in revenue. So obviously they likely would have ordered many times regardless, but there's no way they would have ordered that many times had it not been for automation. It's a very powerful way of making sure that your brand is front and center. Okay. Now, most services or tools out there should have some level of automation. If they don't have any automation, you really want to start educating yourself and finding people that can make those things easier for you. Okay. Awesome. I'm going to go here. I'm going to show you a live version so you can see it, so it becomes real for you. Here's another example of automating some of your marketing features. So here's an example where automation has created social posts for restaurants so they can play the role of editor-in-chief versus having to think of everything from scratch. If you have a great site, if your site has good visual content, if your site is interactive, all those things just make this types of thing much more realistic and effective for you. So what you're seeing here is how we've incorporated AI into our platform. We know that there are other platforms who have some version of AI that they've also incorporated. So I think that's something to look for. If your current provider has those options, educate yourself on it. We're happy to help you understand it more, regardless of whether or not you're interested in Pop Menu. And of course, we can share with you our version. What you're seeing here is because the sites are interactive on Pop Menu, I'm just using that as an example, we know things that are happening in your business. We know if you added a new menu item, if you're promoting a new event, maybe you have a certain dish that's getting a lot of reviews and shares. Well, those are things you want to publicize. Those are things you want the world to know about. So by leveraging AI and automation, we've gone ahead and created these social posts for you so that, again, you can just play the role of editor-in-chief. If you're a smaller operator, this is incredibly valuable because it ensures that you have consistency in your marketing and it's great content that's specific to your business. I do think one thing you have to consider as you start hearing about more AI solutions out there is making sure that you keep the originality of the communications. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a lot of people out there getting Taco Tuesday social posts. In fact, I am currently in a smaller town in Florida, and I had literally last Tuesday, I had 3 different communications about local Taco Tuesdays. 2 of them were the exact same image. And so what am I thinking? Well, is that real? Like, which one of these tacos is at that place? So I do think you have to be mindful of what consumers are going to think. If you're using AI to create what we call stock or fake content, just know that the farther off that is from reality, the more potential concerns or questions you may get from your guest. If you can leverage an AI tool that pulls real information, real imagery from your business, then guests know it, and that ultimately leads to better response rate. Now, one question we get a lot is, well, how does AI know about my business? I'd rather do it myself. I think we can do it better. And maybe some cases you can. You can still leverage AI to do things for you. You still come up with the idea. But what we've seen on our platform is the AI generated posts, if you look specifically on Facebook, are outperforming the manually generated posts. And I think that tells us something. Okay, so it does tell me that at worst case, you should be experimenting with it. And as I mentioned before, I think you have to ask yourself the question, can you afford to be the only restaurant in your area that isn't leveraging automation and or AI to some degree? So I do think in the worst case, educating yourself on what it is, talking to people that you trust, and understanding what are the pros and cons, I think, because ultimately you'll want to incorporate it in your business. So I'm going to dip out here, and I'm going to jump to a live site. I'm going to show you another example of those two things we just saw. The other thing that we've created, and I think you're going to see some similar things in the market, is we've used AI to help our clients generate an entire month's worth of marketing activity. So now we send it to them 10 days in advance of the month so that you, again, can play the role of editor in chief. You're busy. It's impossible to do everything you're doing, especially if you don't have a large marketing team, to make sure that you're consistent in your messaging and you're doing it across multiple verticals, email, social, text messaging, for example. So what we've done is we've created this calendar because we know things that are happening in the business. We've created the calendar. You just simply have to go in and approve the content. You can edit the content. You can reject the content. You're going to have some vendors you're using today, like I said, that will have some elements of this. I think, again, educating, dabbling with it, trying it is a great way to improve the efficiency of you and your team. So let me bounce out and just show you some quick live examples. I think we're doing all right on time. Let's go here. And I'm going to show you a few different examples. So here's an example of automation. I'm just using ours as an example so you can see a live version. As people interact with the site, I showed you in that slide, people are doing things. I'm learning about which location they're frequenting. I'm capturing multiple ways to communicate with them. I'm learning things about their preferences. Let's click on Kendall. Here's an example because the site's interactive. Kendall may or may not have purchased from us, but regardless, they raised their hand and said, hey, I love this restaurant. I want you to interact with me and tell me about things. So I've got this information, including the things Kendall loves or wants to try. That's a really valuable piece of information. If we don't incorporate automation, it's very likely that the restaurant won't action any of this insight. And this is something that's incredibly valuable that puts you way ahead of the competition. Let's just use one example of the automation. Let's say the Sunrise Beach Bowl. Let's say Kendall loves this item. Well, let's say you take it off your menu for winter and you bring it back next April. How does Kendall know that it's back? He or she doesn't, right? Well, this is one of thousands of examples that restaurants are missing out on because, one, they don't have the top of the funnel insights because they didn't allow consumers to interact with them. And then secondly, they're too busy to go out and write an individual email to Kendall. Well, let me show you an example of how we've incorporated automation and something you should look for in your tools. So in our platform, we give people email. You have unlimited sends. Just to give you some perspective, great technology doesn't mean it has to be expensive or take a long time to be great. This email, I think, looks fantastic, has all the linking capabilities you would want. Again, it's free for you as part of our platform. Now, what I'm going to show you is the automation piece. And again, look for your provider to see if they have some of these things. So what we've done is we created automated, what we call smart messages, automated emails. So these are things that as people interact with us, we learn about them, right? Hey, maybe somebody orders from you, but they haven't ordered in 3 or 4 weeks. The system can automatically send that message to McKenna. Hey, I miss you. Click here to order. We miss you, whatever. Let's use the example of that. I think it was the Sunrise Beach Bowl or something. Returning dish. Here's an example where automation is helping you get your message out there. Let's say you bring that Sunrise Beach Bowl back. Well, in this example, automation, because you're on our platform, we know that 78 people loved that dish. Well, automation says when you bring it back on the menu, our system is going to automatically message those 78 people automatically without you having to remember to do it, remind anybody to do it, or spend any money to do it. And that's incredibly valuable, right? Imagine that happening constantly every single day. Well, how do I know if that's really powerful? Let's just show you one data point here. And you can look at your email performance rate. You can also go to for example, the MailChimp website. It'll show you the restaurant industry. Restaurant specific says the average open rate, meaning somebody reads an email from a restaurant, is about 21%. Okay, the average click rate, meaning I click to order, I click to call you, do something like that, is around 1.2%. Well, what I'm showing you here is a rolling 30 days, millions and millions of emails we've sent on behalf of our guests to their clients, our clients to their guests for free. Now, I'm only showing you this because I want you to understand the power of automation. This is less about Pop Menu and more about valuable touch points that should be happening in your business that likely are not because they're too manual today. You can see here our open rates are not 20%. They're 65, 48, 42, 61, 59. You get the point. They're drastically higher. They're drastically higher. The average click rates range between 3.5% to 9%. Drastically higher than industry averages. You didn't have to pay for it. And the automation ensured that it happened without you having to spend any time. So leveraging automation is incredibly valuable for you in your business. It'll just allow you to get more things done and ensure things are happening. Now, two other things that I just showed you. I'll just show you the live version really quickly. This is what we spoke about. You can see here that we've added this item. So AI has helped us generate this content. So now all you have to do is say, yep, that looks great, sounds great, and I publish now. And in one click, it goes to all of your social channels. You can say, I want to schedule that out for another date. Maybe you didn't like the content. You can shift here and create it. I'll just show you a live version here. This, you can see, are the different stuff that is happening. This is an example of AI saying, I see what's happening in the business, so I created this for you. And it's pulling original content, which again, I think is really important. Here's an example so you can see AI in case you're not familiar with it. Let's say in this example, I'll choose the grilled octopus. And I don't have time to write a message, or I've got writer's block, but I need to get this social post out. Well, this is an example of how we've incorporated AI into our business. And again, we know that many other people are incorporating AI into their tools. So whatever tool you're using today, look for some of these options, start to experiment. Obviously, we're happy to help you. But let's say I want this to be a family-friendly dish. No, I want this to be a staff favorite. And our staff is edgy. And now I'm going to click the generate content. And in 2 seconds, I've generated a great social post. The ability for a smaller operator to now compete with larger operators, to now get their name out there significantly more in seconds for free, is invaluable. If you're a large operator, and we do have a customer in California that has 42 locations across 8 concepts, they have 1 marketing person. It's impossible for her to get that message out. And as a result, the restaurant is missing out on a lot of revenue and profit. But this is an example of AI being leveraged here. And I'll show you why we're so adamant about it. I mentioned on the slide, we've taken it a step further where we create an AI marketing calendar. Some of your vendors may have something relatively similar, or as you go to look for new vendors in the future, I would be asking for things like this. What we've done here is we've leveraged AI to create an entire month's worth of marketing activity, 15 social, 6 email, 2 text messages. Sometimes it'll be 1 or 2 more or less in each category. And of course, you can adjust that yourself. But now what we've done is we send this to the restaurant 10 days in advance of the month. And now all they have to do is say, yep, that post looks great. I want to approve it. And boom, away it's done. So this is a good example of automation and AI and how it's helping our clients move so much faster than their competition without having to spend a lot of money or invest the time. And I'll explain one last time why this is just so incredibly important. This is a mom and pop Jamaican spot in Virginia, not fancy place, not in a huge area. They incorporated the AI marketing calendar sort of mid-February. And before that, they really weren't doing any marketing other than the automation that we were providing. Let me show you here. Maybe you can tell me when you think they started the AI marketing calendar. There is no catch. I think one reason why we've been successful is we've done our best to try and simplify things for restaurants. The 2 most important things we get asked, the 2 most frequent things we get asked, it's working, and what should I do next? And so we know no matter who you are, if you market yourselves consistently, you drive more transactions. That's a fact. It's a direct correlation. There is no debate. You can see here the automation before was still driving revenue just by turning on automation. But look at the impact when she started to have more impressions. She went from 1,700, and this is just online ordering revenue. This isn't even on-prem. So she went from 1,700 to 6,300 to 16,000 to 10,000, and again to 13,500. Now, look at this restaurant. Tell me if you can see when they turned it on, they had to pause in March for some reason, and look what happened. Their impressions dropped, and so did their revenue. They turned it back on. There is no catch. Marketing yourself is incredibly is critical to your success. If you're really trying to drive not just top line revenue, but drive margins and profit, you need to incorporate automation into your business. Leveraging AI allows you to do things that you never thought were possible. Does that mean AI is perfect? Absolutely not. Do I think there are some bad AI solutions out there? Absolutely. Do I think there's some great ones? Absolutely. I think anything that you're leveraging with AI, I would make sure that it's tied to how people are making decisions about your business. So something that is somehow impacting the menu experience, and making sure that it's pulling original content are two very important things to do. So, all right, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint because I want to make sure we leave time for questions. And these are just some slides to validate what I just showed you. Just showing you that there is no doubt that if you market yourself, you get more transaction. That was the rubies that I showed you there. All right, a couple of last things here, streamlining operations for guests and staff. Obviously, the biggest challenges we hear are, regarding things you can control, is nearly half of folks continue to believe they're juggling way too many tools. Do you want to manage 8 or 10 vendors or contractors, or do you want to manage one? Think you want to manage one? Hey, do you want to show up high in Google or no? Yeah, I want to show up high in Google. So looking for tools or partners that can help you consolidate multiple things into one spot, incorporate your marketing with your website, integrate with your POS, I think are really important. Here, percent of people are concerned that my guest data is in a lot of different places. How can I aggregate that and put it in one spot? So I'm going to show you a couple of things of how we do that. So like I said, looking for people that do as much of these things in one place, I think is something worth exploring. Managing 5, 8, 10 different things just is not realistic long-term at the pace technology is moving. Obviously at Pop Menu, all these things and more in our platform. And again, there are other options out there. Even some POS providers have a marketing component. I think about that, about retention, where I think about front-end solutions like a Pop Menu, for example, are really focused on acquisition. And those things can live together well. They can complement each other. So looking at what's at your disposal, I think is very important. Okay. Here are just some more data. So over 40% of consumers will move on to the restaurant if they get voicemail. So now we're talking about phone systems and AI. I do think it's important, especially if I look at Illinois. It's not necessarily the cheapest market to operate in. It's a competitive market depending on where you are in the state. And when we look at data around turnover of hosts or cashiers or people that might be answering the phone, taking orders, etc., it's relatively high, typically less than 6 months, I believe, depending on the research you find. And what that tells me is if you're relying on your staff to answer the phone, you're likely missing out on a lot of revenue opportunities, and you're missing out on a lot of opportunity to learn more about the guests. So consumers also are perfectly fine with it. So if you're not leveraging some sort of technology to help you balance, your labor challenges with consumer demand in terms of phone volume, I'm going to show you an example here. And almost 60% of consumers prefer to order directly from your restaurant website. So having a good first-party ordering system is just better for you economically. I'm going to show you just the back end real fast. I won't dive too much into it, but this is a restaurant. I believe they're in South Carolina, small market, and they're using our AI phone system because they just had too much. Their labor was really stretched thin. They found that they couldn't handle the phone volume, so they had to turn it off during peak hours, which meant they lost orders, they lost reservation requests, they lost catering. Also, if you're stressed with labor, the last thing I want to do is pull Jen away from servicing an 8-top to go answer a basic query about whether or not we cook with peanut oil or we have outdoor seating. So I'm going to show you an example here. I'll just go ahead and finish this because I know we're running on time. The other thing, and then online orders, having a great first-party ordering system, especially one that's commission-free for you, I imagine is the preference for virtually every operator. Third-party platforms are great for acquiring guests, but the economics in that can be really tough for restaurants. So making sure you have a great ordering experience on your site, one that's optimized for mobile, Well, one, help you capture more transactions, and two, you capture a lot more margin. That's a great way to help your profitability here. So this is Steam Boys, the one I shared earlier. But ordering not only drives revenue, but it also is a great way to build up your community of followers, which again go back into your remarketing efforts. So I'll just go here because I know we're running short on time, but I do want to show you in the back end. Again, there are other providers that will do this. This is an example of the phone system. And today what we have is a system, and there are many others out there, but our phone system, imagine 20 to 47 cents an hour. You can handle 300 calls at one time. It's a great sales. They're great salespeople. They never call in sick, no insurance or liability. They know everything about your business and they don't turn over every 6 months versus the alternative, which is whatever you're paying for minimum wage, plus insurance, benefits, all that stuff. We're not saying don't hire those people, but if I'm paying roughly $25 all in an hour for someone to handle my phones and be my host, I want to make sure they're providing great hospitality to the people that are right in front of them. So leveraging technology, AI-based phone systems is a great way to ensure a tremendous guest experience. What guests really hate are being on hold or getting a busy signal or not getting an answer to their query. I may want to make a reservation request, but if you can't tell me if you cook with peanut oil or not, I assume the response is negative, and so I don't choose your restaurant. Today, our system and other systems like this, we transcribe voicemails, so if somebody calls after hours, we can message you. Today, we have 8 voice options. We're working on Spanish as well, likely to happen beginning of next year. A great AI-based system will allow you to customize your greeting. It's a great opportunity to highlight high profit items. You can do product placement. What we've seen is doing a product placement in the greeting has resulted in more interactions of that item and ultimately more purchases of the item. Again, it does tell me that you can influence the purchase pattern, and customizing your farewell to talk about a sister concept or maybe a catering or Mother's Day brunch that's coming up. And then every category of questions, you get to customize the response. Hey, do you have gluten-free options? Are you pet friendly? You get to customize the response, so it's always your tone and voice. I think for time's sake, we probably won't have time to call this because I want to make sure we answer questions. If you're interested in this, we're happy to follow up and we'll send the team more information. Again, there are other options out there. If you're in and around Chicago, then what I would do is make sure that you are learning about this, because I do think it's something that every operator should be investing in. Again, 20 or 47 cents an hour versus what you're paying. If you're going to pay that, make sure they're providing hospitality to the people in front of them. AI is a great way to make sure that orders aren't lost, that when somebody captures the reservation, it's better for you economically. When somebody has a question about a gluten-free, do you have gluten-free options? We text them a gluten-free menu where they can see highlighted items, and all this stuff is giving your restaurant a better chance of success. The last part that we touched on is the ordering. I'm going to show you an example of ours and what I mean by a great first-party ordering system. You'll see here the options for pickup or delivery. In our system, and I think many others out there, look for ordering systems that not only have great first-party, but that can integrate delivery options if you want, because the financials of this are so much better for you, okay? I'll show you what I mean. In this example, and this is our ordering, it's optimized for mobile, the same visuals, the same interactive components that influence my decision to dine in, they also influence my decision to order from you and what to order. The ordering process you want to make sure is very easy. It's very simple. Let's add a beignet, of course. Bacon Parmesan and beignet. That sounds like a perfect lunch for me. And you can see here, I'll go to checkout. Ordering is a great way. Oh, sorry. French onion soup. Okay. But ordering is a great way to build up a community of followers. And then you also know what they've interacted with and purchased. And then that goes back into your automation. So if you're looking at ordering providers, or if you're evaluating your current situation, ask yourself, does it have this type of functionality? Is it integrated with my POS? Because these are things that ultimately give you a better chance at creating more margin. Last thing that I'm going to touch on with this is I want to show you what that integration does. If you're somebody that's doing a lot of deliveries and you're trying to figure out how to get them to first party because delivery is expensive, this is a calculator that we've produced. and again, this is variable, but I think just for high level purpose, let's imagine that Katie orders an or $50 order from your restaurant through DoorDash directly, the DoorDash marketplace. Now we can say you're doing 25% commission. Let's do 20%. You can play around with it. Our guest service fee is 10%, not 15. And our guest delivery fee is $2.99. Well, that same $50 order on our system where you can subsidize up to $6.99, not only does the consumer pay less, but in this example, the restaurant owner made almost $8 more. There is no catch. The reality is, I think restaurants don't fully understand that, or you don't have an interactive or an ordering experience that's allowing you to take advantage of something like that. Your ordering provider will need to have an integration there. We have an integration. There certainly are other people that have that also. But I think that's just something that I always like to tell people. There's a lot of big things that we or other people can do in consolidating so many components into one spot. You don't need to spend $1,500 to have a site, an email tool, a social tool, all that stuff. You can spend a few $100s to have everything in one spot that is automated and performs better. And then there are 50 little things like this that if you have in your business, it's significantly improving your profit situation. So I wanted to highlight that thing. All right, I'm going to move quickly so that we have some questions. I think we're almost done here. And let me go here. I already explained this earlier, but having data on your consumers really helps you understand what's working, what you should do next, and all of those things. A good tool will have that type of information easily at your disposal in the back end or on your own app. PopMenu has an app for owners. I'm sure others do as well. So familiarizing yourself with those tools is well worth the time. Here's a few. Libby's Neighborhood Brasserie use data to drive their business. You can see they're doing a promotion, but they earned over $20,000 in revenue from a 35% discount that they sent trying to drive people Monday to Tuesday. Now, what they did through that process is they captured guest information, and now they have that community that they can market to. So I think that's a good way to using technology and automation to help drive revenue and profit on days maybe that are slower than others. So that's a good example. Here's one where they attached an offer to their emails, which replaced their loyalty program, which they found was expensive and maybe not as powerful as they thought. Obviously, you should do whatever's working for you, but I think this is a good example of how people are using tools to do things, not just sending an email just to send an email, but having them be specific or having them be strategic. And then here's the last one where they used quality over quantity, what we like to say, but they use this to be more mindful about the frequency of their outreach. And we think that's some good examples. So last one is knowing your ROI. You'll see here that understanding what's working. We actually drill down and help people understand that when you send an email, hey, here's how much that email drove for you. We can tell if you send an email about ordering, if they click the order link that day, if they come back and do it within a few days, we're going to track that. We're going to tell you what worked. I think there are other tools out there that are something similar or trying to, but have whammy. And so here's just more examples of the type of data you should be looking for. Great. I'm going to stop there. I think we've got about 5 or 8 minutes, something like that. A lot of information to share. My big takeaways are leveraging automation is a great way to do more with less. I think every business owner, whether it's in the restaurant space or not, is trying to do exactly that. Focusing on driving free traffic, optimizing for Google, making sure your menu experience is putting your best foot forward, and then looking for marketing tools and partners that leverage automation and of incorporating AI, I think are critical to you maximizing profit. I also think that if you're not investing in it today, you're nervous about it, totally understand, but go out and educate yourself, talk to people at PopMenu, regardless of whether you work with us, we're happy to help educate people, because I do think at some point you're going to have to figure that out to some degree in order to maximize profits. But that was a lot of information. We'll see what questions we have.
Yeah, thank you for the great presentation. Super fascinating and amazing to see those stats. So we got a couple of questions.
Okay.
One, an attendee asked, how long does integration and onboarding take?
Yeah, so at Pop Menu, I mean, we do a lot of research. So we understand like what most people are doing out in the market. I think we're much faster. I think we've really spent a lot of time and effort over the last 7 years figuring that out. Most of our sites we launch between 14 and 30 days. We have what we call like a fast track onboarding. So many customers are like, this looks great. I want to get it up as quickly as possible. We fast track those people and we onboard them in 14 days. And then we give them $800 back by doing that because we love it when people want to move as quickly as we do. We're always ready within 14 days on our side. The most important, but 14 days, 30 days tops, even for a large multi-unit operator, we feel like we have a really great process. I think the industry average you're going to see if people that are not necessarily, we don't really have direct competitors, but we have other people doing front end website type stuff. If they're a company, you're probably looking 45, 65 days at best on a lot of the other people. If you're using an, sometimes going to be much longer. They're typically, sort of recreating everything from scratch. So that takes longer. Obviously, it's more expensive. One thing I would say about sites and platforms is it doesn't have to be expensive or take a long time to be great. I do think that's a big misnomer in the industry. And I would really challenge that if you find yourself in that situation. So 14 to 30 days with Pop Menu. I think the industry average is a little bit longer than that.
Great, thank you. And another attendee asked, is this better for larger hospitality groups or can a small restaurant benefit?
Everyone can benefit. I mean, at Pop Menu, like what I was showing you is, over 80% of our customers are still 1 and 2 locations. When we built our business, we really focused on mom and pops, SMB space. So no, I mean, vast majority of our business is 1 and 2 location operators. Like I said, I think there's multiple use cases, but if you're a single location operator, it's pretty rare that you can produce a website, a dynamic menu that looks better than a 200 location group. Technology and the right partner allows you to have a site that looks as good or better than anything they're using today. And then the tools, the data is clear. Great technology that leverages automation that can pull really valuable top of the funnel insights because they made the menu interactive. It levels the playing field dramatically. That Ruby's Jamaican, I mean, I showed you that one. They started out in their house and then they moved to a bricks and mortar. They started marketing themselves. They'd never done it. And we had a webinar a couple weeks back and the owner got on and she was telling a story about how the kitchen came in and said, hey, what's going on? We're selling out of the brown stew. I don't know what brown stew is, but I'm sure it's good. And she's like, they don't typically sell a lot of brown stew, but they had sold out a couple of days in a row. Well, what they went and found out is the automated campaigns that we had generated had produced a text message and a social post about the brown stew. So, that doesn't happen all the time, but I think it's a good example that the restaurant with a small operator gets so busy, so they're the ones that tend to not do the marketing that they need to be doing, and then because then it gets expensive. So finding a tool like, for example, like us allows you to level the playing field. So no, short answer is vast majority of our customers are 1 and 2 location operators. We've got people in towns of 3,000 people. We've got a customer in Lebanon, Indiana, a town of 14,000 people. They turn on the marketing calendar. It's Pizza King. It's one of their locations. And their ordering revenue, I think, went up 8x just by simply marketing themselves. And that's a small town. So yes, it works for everybody. If you're a large operator, I think the results just continue to compound much faster. But a single location operator, it's game changing.
Great, thank you so much. So it looks like we're at the end of our time. I would like to thank you all for attending and thank Tony Roy. I'd also like to thank the Cook County Small Business Source for their continued support. Following the conclusion of this webinar, attendees will receive an email with links to the webinar recording and presentation. Thank you all for attending and thank you and have a great day. And thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you. See you guys.